Welcome to Chalk Talk, a weekly preview of West Tennessee football featuring the Jackson Sun sports team here on JacksonSun.com.
Hey there, welcome into another edition of College Football Chalk Talk here on JacksonSun.com. I'm Jackson Sun sports editor Brandon Shields. He is our Jackson Sun local college sports writer, Craig Thomas. And Craig, as we're breaking down this week's games, we have one local college football team playing at home this week. I'm guessing you'll be there at that game.
That's right. It's going to be Lane College, and frankly, Lane's got a little work to do, especially after last week. You looked at that on paper and think this is maybe a good chance for them to, if not beat Tuskegee for the first time, then be competitive. They didn't do either one. They lost 44-3. They let a Tuskegee team that was having trouble offensively roll up 500 yards. They still have quarterback issues. That's something that Malik Hoskins talked about on the conference, the SIAC teleconference this past week, is that he thought at this point he'd have a quarterback that he could rely on, and the reason he's using two is because they haven't proven themselves yet. And that Roderick McKee and Terrence Ayers kind of going back and forth, and I don't think that either one of them has shown the consistency that he's looking for out of the quarterback position. It's holding Lane back. Roderick McKee, the way he described it, has a good arm, but sometimes thinks he can make a throw that he can't throw. Terrence Ayers, on the other hand, is a smart guy, but sometimes kind of overthinks things and ends up putting Lane in a bad spot.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things they kind of have to learn. Neither of them has been the guy before, and so that's kind of offensively it's limiting Lane. And then you look at the fact that they're still missing some people from last year that were major contributors. So you can see why Lane's offense is just not what it was. Defensively, they had some issues. Craig Drummond, somebody I'm going to talk to later this week, who's had a pretty good pretty good season so far with Lane, had a concussion, and that game had to come out. And that made things tougher on Gabriel Mass, who's their other star defensive end, couldn't quite get the pressure because they were double teaming him.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of things snowballed on Lane to some degree, but got a chance, I guess, to sort of build back, have a good showing at home. They had a poor opening game against Benedict, but Stillman is a solid team, I guess. Should challenge them to some degree, but not to the extent that Tuskegee will. And one of the things I thought was interesting was Hoskins mentioned that his players seemed a little bit intimidated just because it's Tuskegee. They know the history, they know the name, and didn't give their best effort. I think really no excuses for that now. Lane still at 1-1 in the conference, in position to do some things, but they've got to they got to play better football, obviously.
Yeah. Speaking of trying to play better football, UTM is trying to play better football, and they're going to need it this week when they go down to Jacksonville State.
Yeah, they really needed it this past week, to be honest. They needed that win against SEMO, and it didn't happen. 31-27. One of those games where they had in Jason Simpson's opinion, and I agree with him, a better effort, not just in performance, but just in the work ethic they showed. But unfortunately, they didn't get the result. Maybe if they do that in some of these other games, you get it done, or a little bit more consistently, you get it done even against SEMO. But that didn't work out. Now they're 0-2 in the conference, and they're playing a top 10 team that frankly looks pretty scary in Jacksonville State. Mm-hmm. This is a team that is there's something of a powerhouse now in the OVC. They got a big stadium, big fan base, and a lot of success. I mean, they made the third round of the playoffs last year, just as Eastern Illinois did. Jacksonville State has darn near everybody back. Mm-hmm. They got DeMarcus James, their running back, who is the easy choice for the preseason Offensive Player of the Year. They've got four really excellent defensive linemen, three of which played for either Alabama or Auburn at some point.
Yeah.
And they got an all-conference guy there as well. So they're going to, I think, challenge UT Martin in all phases. And, we'll again see, what kind of progress UTM's making. One positive for them, Jared Neal had a really good game, I thought, at SEMO. I know Simpson was a little unhappy with him late with some of the, I guess, the reads and things like that. But overall, he was pretty good. Didn't, turn the ball over, had some good passes. And really, if UT Martin gets that touchdown there when they had the ball first and goal inside the 5, they get that touchdown, we're not even talking about some of those issues. It's more just trying to get back in the race, where now that looks like a really, really daunting task. But obviously, UT Martin's going to need its best football going forward to have a shot at whatever its goals might be going forward.
Speaking of trying to meet their goals and needing to play better football, working our way north, Bethel is going to Bluefield, Kentucky, and
Bluefield, Virginia.
Bluefield, Virginia. My apologies. So the question for me, on the outside looking in of the college sports beat, you've been around Bethel more than I have, so you're going to know a little more. But the question is, for me, not just can they win, but can they compete?
Yeah, Bethel can compete this week and should. I mean, Bluefield's a third-year program. They've won one game ever. They've never beaten a team in the conference. So if Bethel's going to win a game this year, it looks like this one. Okay, this one or maybe one other one down the road. But I mean, to me, even given Bethel's issues the first 5 weeks, I don't see any excuse for them to not compete this week. This is not Georgetown where you're going to beat 63-7. There's no excuse for that. But I think, as nice as it looks, even on a sort of moral victory standpoint, to get those 35 points from last week, you got to remember, 2 of those were touchdowns that were kick returns.
Yeah.
Otherwise it's maybe 63-21. You maybe assume your offense scores or something, but overall their offense has just they're not doing it. I think at this point, you don't want to say it's a lost season, but at 0-5 and 0-2 in the division, you're not going to challenge for anything, especially given the way you've been playing. I think this is a chance for Bethel to kind of experiment with personnel, with some strategy, see what works and what doesn't, and then next year, when you've got some more experience for all these guys that are going to be coming back, you have a little bit better sense of what worked and what didn't, and it didn't really cost you anything because you were so far behind this year to begin with. So I think that's going to be something that Bethel won't say it, but I think it's something for them to look into doing. And but even just looking short term, there's no reason for them not to compete against a school that just doesn't have that many older players. They haven't been around that long. So I think that Bethel should at least be competitive this week. And if they don't win, then it looks that much bleaker for them getting a win at all this year.
One final game to talk about. Last week, Memphis competed well on the road against an SEC opponent. This week, they're on the road at a former Conference USA big rival. And Cincinnati in the American Athletic.
This is the start of the American Athletic Conference, and Cincinnati, the last few years have been pretty good. I mean, Cincinnati has been, to me, the kind of program that Memphis aspires to be. Urban public school that's sort of overlooked, seen as more of a basketball school, but sure. Cincinnati football, they've played in BCS games, they've had an unbeaten regular season. This team has been pretty good the last 5 to 7 years, and I think they sort of showed still how much further ahead they were than Memphis last year when they came to the Liberty Bowl on Halloween, and really exploited several of Memphis's weaknesses, notably in that game, guys just not catching catchable passes.
Sure.
Ole Miss is really tough, obviously. It's they're a top 10 team. They've really improved, and I don't think many people expected Memphis to win that game necessarily in Oxford. I was a little surprised personally that the game wasn't more high scoring than it was. I was expecting maybe more like 42-24, and it turned out 24-3. So, but I wouldn't see that as too much of a red flag for Memphis's offense right now. I think we've seen too many good things, especially that UCLA game, that's proven that Memphis has a chance to be competitive in this league. But we're really going to find out starting this week. If you can go on the road to Cincinnati and win that game, then all of a sudden the conference opens up a good bit, because you've got a lot of teams who frankly are not juggernauts or anything, not to knock them or anything like that, but I think Memphis can compete in this league. I felt like that since the beginning. As long as they just did what they're capable of doing, sort of took care of little things, they can compete in this league. And Cincinnati obviously is a really tough task for the first game, but you win it and you're in a really good spot.
All right, well, definitely going to be a lot going on this week when it comes to West Tennessee college football. For anyone wanting to follow along with the Lane game and won't be able to be at Lane Field for whatever reason Saturday, he'll be there. Kickoff is at 2. And you can follow him at JS Ryder Craig for updates, and I imagine you'll be putting stuff up all, throughout the evening, for finals,
no doubt.
From Bethel and UTM and Memphis as well. So thanks for reading Jackson Sun at jacksonsun.com. Thanks for logging on. Thanks for watching. And thanks for trusting us as your #1 source for local sports information here in West Tennessee.